What's going on, all? All right, I think we're live. Welcome back to another show. Today we're going to do a little recap of a webinar that we did Saturday. So I want to welcome you back. It's Mike here. Today we're going to talk all about exercise timing. And what I mean by timing is like exercising in the morning, either on a fed or fasted stomach, fed or fasted state, versus exercising in the evening. Now, what I recommend to all my clients and what I recommend to all of you is exercise at the time of the day when you can most likely make it a very consistent and routine habit. We've talked about the parallels metabolically to fasting and exercise and how going out and doing one major exercise event a year, maybe it's an Ironman, maybe it's a triathlon, maybe it's some sort of powerlifting event, and then only exercising leading up to that one event and then not exercising after that doesn't yield some of the benefits compared to day in, day out, 51 or 52 weeks per year, where you're working out, walking. This can be gardening, this can be hiking, this can be recreational activity. Whatever it is, those consistent habits and moving your muscles are going to send the appropriate metabolic signals, which will yield the best benefits. And so we're going to talk about that today. Just want to welcome you all here. And if any point you're digging this content and you're like, Mike, please do more live sessions like this. Please hit that like button. That lets me know that I should do more videos like this. That lets our friends over on YouTube know that, hey, maybe more people should be notified when we go live because YouTube's constantly changing their algorithm. And yeah, so here we go. Let's rock and roll. Here are some screenshots from the webinar. All right. Now, just for those of you that are, if you're new to High Intensity Health, if you're new to our webinars, if you're new to our email list, what we do 3 weeks a month is we do webinars on Saturdays, sometimes Wednesdays as well. So there's going to be a link below to the webinar. And that way, if you sign up, even though the webinar's over that we did Saturday, you'll get access to the replay information. And part of what I'm doing here now is because Zoom's had an issue with our replay. So we're just going to redo it for some folks. And then we give the full replay, PDF notes, additional bonuses about how to build a hip thruster at home. I have a little schematic for you all. If you're not really sure what a hip thrust exercise is, I'll have to show it on another slide here. But let's just talk about some current events, some things that are unique in terms of scientific articles that have shown that exercise, and this is only in animals, but this is a recently published study that was talked about a lot. And again, where am I going with this study? Why should we talk about this one particular study? Well, I think it's important to understand that exercise yields much more than just fat loss benefits, much more than just glucose lowering benefits. And I use quotations. Obviously, there's a huge benefit to burning fat. There's a great benefit to lowering glucose. But consistent and regular exercise has been shown to increase the stem cell activation and prevent the age-related loss of lean muscle mass. So one of the things that we've talked about on this channel for, 5 years now since we've been doing this, is as we age, there's a concomitant increase in, you can't see my hand. As we age, inflammation goes like this, okay? As we age, our glucose tolerance goes down, okay? So we get more inflamed. As we age, we lose muscle mass as well, unfortunately. So all these things happen. And so exercise is a longevity enhancing strategy. I know this is not news to many of you. You're like, duh, exercise is wonderful. But I say this because I go to all the ketogenic diet conferences that you go to, and I hear people kind of say, exercise, it doesn't really do much of anything, just change your diet. You can do both. You can change your diet and start exercising, and we'll talk about the specifics on exercise. So this new study is talked about a lot. And what's interesting in these researchers found is that when these animals were doing a treadmill-based exercise, and they looked at the TGF-beta inhibition associated with the exercise. So TGF-beta is a pro-inflammatory cytokine, essentially. It's a molecule the immune system uses to communicate. Exercise was shown to inhibit that, and that affected stem cell generation. And we don't have all the details to talk about right now, but one of the things that we talked about extensively on the webinar is scientific folks all throughout Italy and other researchers in Denmark have shown that age-related loss of lean muscle tissue is at the root cause of insulin resistance. I'm going to say that one more time because I think it's really powerful. Age-related loss of lean muscle tissue is at the root cause of insulin resistance. And because when we think about insulin resistance, a lot of us kind of think about, well, your glucose goes up. Okay, but why is your glucose going up? largely because maybe you're eating too much energy and or too much calories or too much carbohydrates for the exercise demands that you're placing on your body. That could be factor number one. Factor number two could be that there's some sort of insulin resistance, meaning that there's high glucose, but the insulin receptors are not appropriately recognizing insulin, so that could be another factor. But we don't really think about what's going on at the level of the muscle. And so we talked about extensively on the webinar, which again, links will be below to the replay information. And so you can get access to our private webinars every Wednesday. We also do them on Saturday as well. That type 2 diabetes and the insulin resistance as a result probably starts in the leg tissue, in the legs. Now, here's a slide that during the webinar I shared. A lot of people like this. So let me just move it over to the middle so you can see this. And this is an Instagram post that I shared like a couple weeks ago at this point now, but Dr. Carrie Jones actually reposted this because I think she thought it was pretty interesting and shared this over on Instagram. But what we don't really realize, we know that we lose muscle as we age, but we kind of think that it's this uniform loss. But what the science actually shows, if you look at the rate at which muscle is lost, and that's denoted by the black line, I want to have you focus in on that black line there. And what you're going to see here is that black line is actually the slope of the black line is greater, meaning that there's an accelerated rate of lean muscle lost in the lower body compared to the upper body. Check that out. Again, I just shared with you some of the science and some of the research and the anecdotal evidence, that people have talked about forever, and then the scientific literature showing that leg tissue muscle insulin resistance precedes the onset of insulin resistance. And then here we have scientific data showing that in both men and women, the rate at muscle loss is greater with age in the leg tissue. Okay? Isn't that fascinating? I think it's really fascinating. Now, as a practitioner, nutritionist, I've been working with people since 2005. Okay? I have found, I would say almost 95% of the time, the clients that I work with, if they exercise, they do some sort of cardio sometimes, whether it's hiking, biking, running, cycling, something like that. They do some resistance training, but not a whole lot. But then I ask them, hey, do you squat or do you deadlift or do you hip hinge? Do you hip thrust? Do you do lunges? Do you do anything like that? No, I haven't done that since high school, Mike, since I stopped playing football, since I stopped doing volleyball, since I stopped competing collegiately. This is very common. Now, the thing that we need to understand is this is an article showing the activation, the EMG activation of leg musculature during a barbell hip thrust. Barbell hip thrust is one of my favorite exercises, and you all know that we've had Brett Contreras on the podcast before, and we talked all about some of these different strategies and exercises and things like that. He basically invented this exercise, and the barbell hip thrust is just a wonderful modality to activate the gluteus maximus muscle. So again, you have your rectus femoris, you have your VMO, you have your hamstrings, and you have your glutes. Your glutes are some of your biggest muscles in your entire body. A lot of people underdevelop them and don't utilize them. So I'm a huge fan of hip thrusting, of deadlifting, of squatting for those very reasons. I'm moving around here. So definitely check that out, friends. If you want to learn a little bit more about this, again, the webinar replay, we dive into the details, but I want you to start to focus in on this stuff because it's really important. I know a lot of you are doing, diet change and you're doing fasting and everything like that. And anyway, I think it's really important. So as I was saying, here's some Instagram, stories from Dr. Carrie Jones. I think she was really interested in the idea that women lose muscle mass at a greater rate in their lower body, and men do as well. We were talking about if you have nothing else to do. Here's a screenshot from the webinar. If you have just 20 minutes, if you could substitute any other activity. Okay, this was a meta-analysis that showed that resistance training, right? If you could substitute resistance training for 20 minutes of aerobics, for 20 minutes of whatever, it's greatly associated with an inverse in visceral adiposity. So if you're confused, you're like, gosh, I hear Mike talking about exercise and how important it is, and then we'll get into the nuances very soon about carb cycling and fasted versus fed state and all that, and exercise timing. But this was a big slide on the webinar that we talked about. Is the study showed that if you could forget about everything else. If you could just do 20 minutes of resistance training several days per week, you will dramatically decrease the enlargement, essentially, of your abdomen as you age. Think about that. To me, that's important. That's powerful. So food for thought. I think this is just one last screen share from a personal trainer that shared this Instagram story as he was on the webinar. All right, so let's kind of get into the nuances here. And let me just check in and just, again, friends, if you're here live, please just hit that like button. That lets me know that I should do more videos like this. For some reason, the chat wasn't totally working when I was looking at it on my computer, but what I'm going to do here is just see if it's working on my phone. Oh, let me clear that layer. Do you still hear that music? Hopefully it's not there. Sorry, guys. I just heard that there was some music playing. Hopefully it's still not there. Okay, we're going to get into this. Okay, all right, so it's off. Cool. There was just a little bit of a delay. Okay, so let's really dive into that. And sorry for that 30-second little snafu. Sometimes this happens when it's live, but I'm just going to dive right into it. Okay, so a lot of people want to know if you do exercise fasted first thing in the morning, is that better for fat loss compared to if I, have a little meal beforehand? And so we talked about all the nuances. Let me just try to make it simple. And if you want to watch the webinar replay, links will be below. But check it out. So here's how it goes. Here's how I think through this. Again, as we started out the webinar, or this live video as well, what you need to realize is when you exercise, the best time to exercise is when you can consistently do it. The best time to exercise is when you can consistently do it day in, day out, at least 3 to 5 days a week. I think if you want to transform your body, you need to be exercising at least 4 days a week, to be totally honest. You can probably get by with 3 days, but that's on the cusp, okay? I would highly recommend and advise a minimum of 4 days, preferably 5 days, okay? Now, if you want to split hairs with, I know a lot of you do, you count your calories, count your macros, your feeding window, and all that sort of stuff. If you want to split hairs, here's what I recommend, and the research actually shows this, okay? You can do fasted exercise first thing in the morning, and then what you could do is, and that would be aerobic-based exercise. So this could be walking, this could be bike riding, this could be cardio. You can throw in some intervals in there and things along those lines. 20, 30 minutes for the most part, right? And then you can do your resistance training in the afternoon. Now, again, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get benefits by doing resistance training in the morning and maybe a little cardio baked into that exercise or after. You'll still get benefits. I'm talking about if you want to split hairs because of the different signaling, because of the AMPK and the various mitochondrial signaling properties that are going to be associated with, and even including, but not limited to, increased levels of autophagy, mediated by the fasting exercise, mostly aerobic based. And then later on in the day, when your body's in a more catabolic, when the catabolism signature, the physiologic state is a little bit more anabolic in the afternoon, that's when you can do your resistance training and split them up. But look, I mean, that's really splitting hairs. That's really getting into the weeds, and here's some signaling that we can leave on the screen here. Might make it just a little bit smaller so you can see a little bit better. But look, that's splitting hairs. I mean, do most people, are they going to be able to do a workout in the morning and then another workout in the afternoon? Probably not. Let's be honest. I mean, you have to be really dedicated, have a lot of time, probably have no kids, no other obligations. If that fits your schedule and you can consistently do that, hats off to you. I think that's amazing. But like I said, I think consistency trumps everything. What I mean by that is if you can do something, if you can just make a routine, make a habit where every morning you get up and you go to the gym. Every morning you get up and go walk. Every morning you get up and do something. Or at 5 o'clock every day you go and do something. That's the something you need to be doing. Not trying to split hairs and do all these crazy things. But if you want to split hairs, I think we now have ample scientific data, short-term, controlled studies where individuals, and I shared these about a year ago on my channel, where we did that fat burning, how are fats burned and all that series. Which if someone's in the chat, they can link, and I'll go back and update this video. But some scientists in Japan actually show that fasted cardio first thing in the morning before the intake of any calories led to a greater increase in net 24-hour fat oxidation, okay? So there could be some signaling going on whereby you deplete glycogen, during that fasted exercise, and you cause a post-exercise increase in fatty acid oxidation. So that's something that's interesting. And then again, later on in the day, if you do some resistance training, again, that catabolic signature might be more favorable. So anyhow, that's what I wanted to share with you. Of course, there's a lot of other details we talked about on the webinar. Links will be below. And then, of course, you all know, and my disclosure, I own a supplement company. That's part of our business. So we have some great deals on some C8 concentrated MCT, which I linked below as well. Buy one, get one half off. We got a huge pallet on our first lot of our liquids. We have a ton of the liquid, and it's not going to go bad anytime soon. It still has, I think, 12 months. It's still good for a long time. But if you are interested in a C8 concentrated MCT, links will be below to our product company called Myoscience, and you can learn a little bit more about that. Anyway, so just let me know if this is this helpful or not. Like I said, we dove into a lot of details on the webinar, but let me just see if we have any questions here. So we have William. William says, "What up, Mike?" What's up, William? Ash is here. Hey, Ash, what's going on? Believe 30 says, "F you." Okay, I wonder why they Believe 30 says that. Hello from Spokane. What else do we got? We got Ash in the house. Good to see you here. Hey, good to see you as well. Erickson is here from the sunny Philippines. That's great. Jim D, thanks for being here, Jim. Hello from Talent, Oregon. Good to see some familiar faces. Okay, so a legit question here. What about those raw dieters who say lifting is unnatural? I don't know, man. I can see that. I see functional fitness being a thing, people doing kettlebells and bodyweight exercises. But again, the theme is uniform. The mechanisms are shared where, if you're doing resistance type training and causing fatigue in your muscle tissue, that's causing adaptations that are favorable. So I'm a fan of that stuff. Alice here from Sydney. Hello from Sydney. WMP says, hard to train legs if you're doing 20K steps per day. Okay, so WMP, I would agree with that. But here's what I would suggest. You can train your legs in the morning before you start your day, before you start your work. But hats off to you for getting 20,000 steps a day. I think if you're truly getting that many steps a day, I don't know that you need to worry about train. I mean, of course, you still should include some resistance training because you're not getting that through just walking, but you're way better than most people. I get someone just says, yes, I've been subscribed, but I've never seen you in my feed until now. Yeah, YouTube's algorithms are crazy. A lot of health channels, their traffic is down like 30%, including my own. Lately, YouTube's constantly changing the algorithm. So that's why your likes are important. Ruth says, hello from Boulder. Ruth, thanks for being here. I love Boulder. I used to live in Boulder. In fact, I still have a 303 area code, which is good. Hello, Austin from Portland, Oregon. What's happening, Austin? Let's see. Someone says, "Let's get that music back on here." You know what? That was from a video over here. Someone says, "Yeah, now there's no rooster crowing." Yeah, my rooster, Lavender, he just goes bonkers sometimes. Okay, so WMP says 20 minutes of leg workout plus constant snacking eating still equals belly fat. Yeah, I mean, WMP, I would agree with you, but also look at some of the fitness models. They're snacking and eating all day. So I think it depends, but I'm with you generally. Brent says, I'm going to take Yohimbe fasted, lifting weights, then go biking. Cool, man. Yohimbe can be helpful. I'm a huge fan of DHEA, as many of you know, but Yohimbe can be helpful. Sal Stewart says, why do you suggest injecting testosterone into fat rather than muscle? Well, Sal, that's a wonderful question about subcutaneous testosterone. I'm not suggesting this for everyone, but if you are taking testosterone replacement therapy, you can, of course, inject subcutaneous or do a smaller insulin syringe intramuscularly. But the idea of the subcutaneous injections is that you're mimicking more physiologic levels of when hormones will be released. So you would preferably, ideally, do subcutaneous dosing of testosterone if and only if you're on testosterone. I'm not advocating everyone get on testosterone, but I realize there's a lot of men that are on HRT. I'm not, but I know there's a lot of men that do, and I have absolutely no problem with that, okay? But you can probably get better baseline levels and better hormone levels if you do sub-Q injections. Now, there's nothing wrong with intramuscular injections except they're painful. And if you want to do that every other day, to get a less of a peak and trough and more baseline levels, it's going to hurt. So it's totally up to you. You can do those small little insulin syringes into the adipose and so forth. And yeah, it's totally up to you. So good question. Okay. Brent says, I have 4 kids, 6 through 14. Wow. So home workouts are for you. So Brent, probably first thing in the morning is great for you. Ryan says, what's happening, Mike? Greeting from Chicago. I used to work in Chicago. I like Chicago a lot. Carb cycling. Yeah. So you know what? We explore this in a little bit more depth on the webinar below. So carb cycling is a phenomenon that many of you are familiar with. And it essentially includes strategically increasing your carbohydrate intake, and preferably around exercise when the body is primed and more insulin sensitive. So give carb cycling a try if and only if you're physically active and you're extremely low carb. And so you can throw that in. And so again, people have all sorts of, I've heard all kinds of anecdotal things. Oh, I do carb cycling every 2 weeks. I do it every 10 days. It's as nuanced and unique as how many carbohydrates people have at any given day, Some very physically fit athletes can afford 100 grams of carbs per day and still be in ketosis. Some people look at carbs and they're out of ketosis, right? So my perceptions and thoughts are use carbohydrate based upon the intensity and the volume of your training. If your training intensity or your training volume warrants a carb cycle, then absolutely go for it. Also, people that are experiencing side effects of ketosis like hair loss, accelerated rate of body loss, losing muscle mass, constipation, fatigue, some things like that, have a carb refeed day. Just experiment with it. So that's a wonderful question. Sal says, Stuart, why do you suggest? Oh, he's asking that question again. Hello from Holland. Wow, thanks for being here, Karen. Anne says, I understand it's best to exercise in a fasted state. When is it best to eat after exercising? Karen, this is a wonderful question. So let me just clarify. Is it always best to exercise in a fasted state? Well, to be honest, it really depends. It depends on your goals. If fat loss is your number one goal, then probably that could be true. But if hypertrophy, if performance is your goal, is really fasted exercise ideal? I would that's arguable. What I mean by that is if you're trying to get really good benefits from your exercise and really crush it in the gym, is being in a fasted state always optimal? My position is no. From a powerlifting standpoint, from a hypertrophy standpoint, from a strength standpoint, you're going to have more strength and power if you have some fuel in the tank. And of course, I'm not the only one to say this. From a longevity perspective, from a pure fat loss perspective, perhaps fasted exercise might be superior, but you might notice some performance detriments. You might notice you're weaker. So just totally keep that in mind. But Anne, I really appreciate the question. Zachary says, so appreciative of your channel. Zachary, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Linda says she's 73 years old in weight training, 3 days a week and doing 5-mile hikes. Linda, amazing. I wish more 73-year-olds were, number one, as motivated as you, and two, as physically able to do that. So, Linda, the only way to really know if you're overtraining, well, there's a couple ways. Subjectively, how do you feel in the morning? Do you wake up ready to hit the road, ready to rock and roll, or are you groggy? You can't really move until you get a couple cups of coffee in you. And you can also track your heart rate variability. First morning heart rate variability is a great insight, a great proxy into your body's state of overtraining. So I would consider that. GH, can DHEA be harmful? Is this question overwhelmingly generic and difficult to address without context? Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Too much oxygen can be harmful, as can be too much water. So of course, DHEA can be harmful. If someone has PCOS, giving someone DHEA is going to be a major problem. Giving females too much DHEA can accelerate secondary sex characteristics that are normally associated with being male, such as facial hair, such as male pattern baldness. Unfortunately, I've had some clients that have been put on super excessive amounts of DHEA by their doctors, and I don't know what the hell they were doing. And these clients were experiencing major side effects. One female client was put on over 100 milligrams of DHEA, which she's in her 30s. I wouldn't ever in a million years recommend that much DHEA for a woman, especially in her 30s. And she was losing hair, and the provider kept her on that. So it's crazy. So yeah, you can absolutely overdo the DHEA. I recommend testing. So you can get your serum DHEA sulfate test. What else can you get? You can get your precision analytics, the Dutch test, all these things. So that's why you should join our email list, which the link is below, to the webinar replay, which will put you on our email list, because I give you our cheat sheet on which labs you should be running, y'all. Super important. Okay. Sal says, thank you, Mike. I've been following you since your very first Jason Fung interview. Thanks for that, bud. I really, really appreciate that. Thoughts on red light therapy for fat loss? Red light therapy for fat loss. I don't know. I mean, if it affects your hormones, then yeah, and your hormones affect body composition, all that, then sure. Is it going to directly cause fat loss? Probably not, honestly. So friends, I hope you enjoyed this little live session, and hope you have a great rest of your day. If you want to support our business, head on over to myoscience.com. The links are below. We have some great deals going on our C8 concentrated MCT oil liquid and powder, as well as 10 milligram DHEA, as well as vitamin A and a few other things. So I would appreciate, if you do take supplements, consider Myoscience, because I source some of the cleanest materials in the business. I've been in this space since 2006. And so I really want to provide you with high quality supplements from great vendors, from people that I personally know and have toured and vetted. So definitely check that out. And if you enjoy these free live sessions and the science, just hit that like button, maybe share this video with a friend, and hope you have an awesome day, awesome week. I have a really, really good interview that I think you'll enjoy this week. And all right. We'll catch you all soon. Have a good evening. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you later.